scores! Steps to the one-timer, scores!
Great save made by Gustavsson.
Right here, what an awesome pass through the slot, onto the stick of Batherson.
Kachuk in tight up, and Steve got scores! Brady Kachuk wins it in overtime for Ottawa.
Welcome to Sens Talk. My name is Brandon, and I am your host. Now, before we get started, please follow us on Twitter at Sens Talk _ and on Instagram at Sens Talk. As well, go to SeatGeek.com, use promo code Sens Talk, just save $20 off your first purchase. Now, last night, the Ottawa Senators took on the Minnesota Wild, and no pun intended, a wild game. But before we get into the game recap, a couple of lineup notes. Firstly, Austin Watson, for the first time in a little bit, has returned to the lineup. Because of this, Scott Sabourin was placed on waivers the other day. He did end up clearing waivers, and now he will be sent down to Belleville of the AHL. Now, as I mentioned, Austin Watson is in. So is Michael Delzato. He draws back into the lineup. Meanwhile, Nick Holden's the defenseman to come out. Now, I am a little shocked about this, that Nick Holden's the defenseman to come out as a healthy scratch. I would have expected it to be either Josh Brown or Nikita Zaitsev, to be quite honest with you. But Ian Mendes, the Athletic reporter, mentioned that Nick Holden may be dealing with a minor nagging injury. DJ Smith apparently alluded to the fact that Nick Holden is dealing with some bumps and bruises right now, and on a back-to-back situation. He is 34 years old. On a back-to-back situation, it maybe was best to sit him out for this situation. That's just speculation. It's nothing confirmed. But Nick Holden's not the best defenseman on this team, but he's not the worst either. Like I said, I would have taken out either Zaitsev or Josh Brown, but we'll see what happens for Thursday's game, which is tomorrow against the Vegas Golden Knights, because, yeah, you know what, I don't think Nick Holden was the guy to take out. I think it's Zaitsev or Josh Brown. They've been at fault for most of the goals this year, and that continued, unfortunately, last night. So because of that, let's get into the game recap. So last night, Ottawa took on the Minnesota Wild. Now, starting for Ottawa last night was Filip Gustavsson. In 3 games before last night's contest versus Minnesota, he had a .932 save percentage, and this was a true opportunity for him to steal the starting position for Matt Murray, at least for the short term. If he had a strong performance last night, I don't think there's any excuse for DJ Smith to not start Filip Gustavsson at least tomorrow against Vegas. I think, especially his performance in that third period, was enough for him to get the starting reins, at least for the short term, for the Ottawa Senators. But we'll see what happens, but he definitely should be starting tomorrow. He earned it, especially with the way he played in that third period last night, but we'll discuss that later. Now, Cam Talbot, he starts for Minnesota last night, and he's been the goalie for every single win for Minnesota this season, so definitely a tough test for Ottawa last night. Now, the test was not great for Ottawa early on, as 3 minutes in, the Senators, of course, cannot clear the front of the net. Josh Brown loses his man, as that is Foligno. You can see on the screen. He puts it in as he's left alone, all in front to give the Minnesota Wild the 1-0 lead. Less than a minute later, a shot from the point deflects off Michael Delzato into the back of the net. Suddenly, Ottawa is down 2-0 less than 5 minutes into the game. Now, after that, DJ Smith calls a timeout. Now, I saw some people wondering, was that the right time to call a timeout? Down 2-0, only 5 minutes in. But it was, because we saw what happened in Chicago. Things unraveled quickly. We're on a back-to-back. The memory's fresh from that brutal loss. I'll be frank about it. That brutal loss against Chicago. You want to get the boys and you want to rally the boys. And it was definitely the right call by DJ Smith. Austin Watson gets into a fight a moment later. And all of a sudden, the Senators get some momentum on their side. And after that fight, after that timeout, a great zone entry by Alex Formenton draws the defender towards him, which allows Connor Brown to sneak along the right boards as he threads the needle with a pass to Nick Paul. Suddenly, Ottawa's down by 1. It's a 2-1 game. A beautiful goal here from Connor Brown and Nick Paul, but a great play by Alex Formenton to really draw the defenseman to him to open up that space for Brown and Nick Paul. Now, unfortunately, a moment later, the Wild make it 3-1, as the Senators absolutely need to shake up their defensive strategy for forwards and defensemen. They are incapable of clearing the front of the net. This is like the second goal in a span of 8 minutes. The front of the net left alone, and you know, what do you want the goalie to do? Do you want him to sprawl out every single time and make some desperate save? I can tell you right now, if you leave a guy in front of the net 8 or 9 out of 10 times, he's going to put the puck in the back of the net. Now, we go to the second period of play. Ottawa's down by 2. They find themselves a little bit in a hole. But early in the second, Brady Kachuk is creating havoc in front of the net. Michael Delzato sees this and takes advantage of this as he fires a shot. The ricochet of the shot goes right to Drake Batherson, who fires it short side. The Senators suddenly down by a goal again. It's 3-2. The Wild did challenge the goal, but it was confirmed as a good goal, giving the Senators a power play. And on that power play, the Senators took advantage. They had great puck movement. And Batherson from behind the net feeds Josh Norris perfectly for the one-timer. Ottawa suddenly ties it. It's a 3-3 game. Great resiliency by the Ottawa Senators shown here in the second period of play. Now we move on. Literally a minute or two later, Cam Talbot makes a stop. The puck bounces off of Turney and in. Ottawa suddenly up by a goal. It's 4-3. Comeback complete. Senators lead, and Chris Turney cannot score without a stick. With a stick, pardon me. I think of his 5 or 6 goals this year, Chris Turney has put the puck in the back of the net with his body at least 4 of those 5 or 6 goals. Chris Turney, you might as well play soccer. Maybe this is not the sport for you, but hey, whatever works. Good goal. Ottawa is up by a goal. It's 4-3 Senators. But unfortunately, Paul, a few minutes later, is called for a ridiculous hooking call. You can see it here. That definitely should not have been a hook. But the Wild go on the power play. They take advantage of this power play. Zaitsev cannot hold his man on the left board side, and the Wild tie it, unfortunately, at 4 apiece. Now we go into the third period of play. Ottawa and Minnesota are tied at 4, and, Filip Gustavsson played a fantastic third period. We'll discuss that in my game notes, but Filip Gustavsson in that third period really had to come up big. Big, because after Ottawa had a great dominant second period, the third period was dominated by the Minnesota Wild. But thankfully, Gustavsson made some 10 bell stops, somehow kept this game tied. He gave the Senators a point. He gave the Senators a chance to win as we head to overtime. But unfortunately, the Senators, as you know, loses one in overtime as Stützle loses his man, putting the Wild on a 2-on-1 that Michael Dozado horribly covers. He didn't commit to a player. On these type of situations, you need to commit at least to the shooter or the guy that can get the pass at least to give the goalie an option. He didn't do either. He was sort of standing in the middle, which left Filip Gustavsson sort of limbo, pardon me. Because of that, easy pass, no coverage. Wild win it in overtime, 5-4. As the Senators now fall 3-5-1 on the season as the Wild get a huge win. But yeah, that goal, it's not the easiest situation for Michael Dozado to cover, but you got to commit to a man. You got to commit to the shooter. You got to commit to the guy that can receive a pass, because the goalie has to commit to somebody, and so do you. And most of the time, you probably want to commit to the pass. Give the goalie the opportunity to stop the puck. Stay close to the shooter, of course, but cover that angle for the pass anyways. Michael Dozado did neither, and really the Wild either had a chance to shoot it there, short side, get the goal, or of course get that pass to Kiprusoff to win the game. So Ottawa was kind of screwed after Stützle lost his man, but Michael Dozado definitely wasn't exactly in the best positioning that he could have been regardless. And besides that, let's get to my game notes, because I've got a lot to say. So first, for my game notes, last night the Senators' top 6 came to play. It was easily Brady Tkachuk's best game so far this season by far. He was engaged last night, involved in a couple of those goals. Now, the rest of that first line of Drake Batherson and Josh Norris continued to play great. They also continued to dominate the slot area in front of the net, getting a couple of goals that way. Now, the second line of Alex Formenton, Connor Brown, and Nick Paul. Yes, Alex Formenton was promoted to the second line as Tim Stützle goes to the third line, hopefully to revamp his game a bit, get a goal. He still has yet to score this season. I'm not really a fan of it, to be honest. I would love to see Stützle with some better players, but you know what? The second line looked great last night, so I can't really question it too much. And I mentioned in my video last night, or the other day, that Alex Formenton might be in Ottawa's top 6 in the near future. Well, it looks like the day is already here. He's in Ottawa's top 6 already. It's kind of funny how that worked out. But yeah, speaking of Stützle, he has yet to score a goal this season, but here's the thing about Tim Stützle. He's generating chances. He almost scored last night to win the game in the last few minutes, all right? But, he hasn't scored yet. So, am I a fan of him being demoted in the lineup? Hell no. I want him to be with the best players possible to get him going. But Formenton has deserved a top 6 look, and he's getting it here. But, with Stützle, he's yet to score a goal. You know who else is yet to score a goal? A single Ottawa Senators defenseman. Now, as we speak about the defenseman, they don't need to acquire a defenseman because our defenseman can't score. We need to acquire a defenseman because our defenseman cannot defend, except for our top pairing. You're going to damage the development of our other players, especially our forwards, with this pathetic decor. Without Chabot and Zub on the ice, this defensive core, or defensive pairings, whatever you want to call it, is getting caved in consistently. Look at this post from at 6Sens on Twitter. The Senators are a completely different team with Chabot and Zub on the ice compared to when they're not on the ice. And when you have your defensive pairings other than Chabot and Zub, your top pairing, your other two pairings, when you have these two pairings getting caved in and night out, that's only going to negatively affect your prospects in your forward core because you're consistently in your own zone. How is that going to be beneficial for a forward like a Tim Stützle, for example? So if you want to help not only win games, but to help develop your forward prospects and your young forward players, get better defensemen so you're not consistently defending against the opposing team. Now, speaking of the defense, let's talk about the defensive scheme. Now, for the defensemen and forwards, the defensive scheme as a whole needs to be revamped by this coaching staff. Look at these stats on the screen right now. We're completely dead last in all but one of these ever so important defensive scheme categories. So for Ottawa moving forward, this cannot continue. You're not going to get bailed out 24/7, and eventually these big saves that Gustavsson and co. are making will not continue. So for Ottawa, they desperately need to fix the scheme. Otherwise, hey, you know what? These chances by Minnesota and all these other teams are eventually going to definitely start going in. Now, what a response by the boys in that second period for Ottawa. 3 goals in under 5 minutes. When they looked down and out, they came scoring and roaring back to take the lead. That's what happens when you don't take your foot off the pedal and when you believe in the system of DJ Smith. So that's great to see by the boys. Last year, DJ Smith in his post-game press conference mentioned that last year we probably would have lost this game 6-1. So it really shows how the boys have developed and how they're buying into the system and the true resiliency this team has. Now, the boys absolutely earned that comeback and deserved the point, but they really deserved the point. They had a great second period, but that third period, they really deserved the point because of Filip Gustavsson. Filip Gustavsson was phenomenal in that third period of play when Minnesota really put it on. He made about 19 to 20 saves in that third period alone, 20 or 19 straight saves, and Gustavsson really stood tall when he had to. Early on, it was not exactly the best start for Filip Gustavsson, but as the game went on, he made the big stops, kept the team in it, and at the end of the day, almost gave them a chance to win this one, getting them at least a point. And besides that, let's get to the Sens Talk Star of the Night, where I think Filip Gustavsson has a good chance to win it. But let's get to the Sens Talk Star of the Night, voted by you, the fans. So the Sens Talk Star of the Night, voted by you, the fans, very obvious. Filip Gustavsson, with about 70% of the vote, is your Sens Talk Star of the Night. He had 38 saves on 43 shots last night. He came up huge in the third period of play, as the Ottawa Senators unfortunately lose 5-4 in overtime. But once again, a fantastic effort by Filip Gustavsson. He should absolutely start tomorrow against Vegas. Now, speaking of tomorrow against Vegas, that game is of course, tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern Time against Vegas at home here in the nation's capital. Besides that, thank you all for watching. I appreciate the support. Make sure to like this video, share this video stuff, and of course, click that big red button down there, make it great, and subscribe to us. Most importantly of all, turn the notification bell on so you get notified whenever we upload a new video. Besides that, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Go Sens, go.